Welcome back to Community Convener, the official podcast of the Henry County Chamber of Commerce, powered by Georgia Power. I am Joseph Henning, President and CEO of the Chamber, and your host. Today, we're diving into a catalytic conversation on a small business and economic resilience with Milton Little Jr., President and CEO of United Way of Greater Atlanta, and what it takes to build stronger, more adaptable businesses in our region. Plus, we'll get an E-SPLOST update as we sit down with Dr. John Pace, Superintendent of Henry County Schools, to discuss what's ahead and how these investments shape education in Henry County. And finally, we'll wrap things up with a special member minute as we sit down with Shanna Amoah, one of our volunteers of the year, to talk about her impact and what drives her commitment to serving our community. So grab a coffee and let's dive in. Welcome to today's episode. We're honored to be joined again this episode by Milton Little Jr., President and CEO of United Way of Greater Atlanta, to discuss the critical intersection of small business success and household stability. Henry County is currently at a unique crossroads, navigating rapid growth in a diversifying economy. And while growth brings opportunity, it also places significant pressure on housing, workforce, and family stability. Today, we'll explore how United Way uses its regional perspective and robust ALICE data, which tracks households that are asset-limited, income-constrained, and employed, to help local leaders move from reactive solutions to preventative strategies. We'll dive into how supporting the household behind the business is the key to long-term economic mobility and why shared data is the most powerful tool we have for making smarter, more impactful decisions for our community. Malcolm, welcome back.
Hey, it's good to see you. I hope you have been well since we were last together.
I have. How about you?
I have too as well. Life's busy.
Yes. We had the first Building Economic Bridges roundtable Tuesday morning, was it? I believe it was Tuesday morning. It's been a long week, but yeah, we had a really great conversation around data, economic mobility, how that is an investment that is not a safety net or a social safety net like that. And so it's the conversation around investment. So I want to start a little bit with following up on those conversations we had around entrepreneurs and small businesses this week. United Way views small business owners as both economic engines and as households. How does your ALICE data help us understand the unique financial pressures and income volatility these entrepreneurs face?
Well, again, thanks for having me, and I loved how you opened up the conversation to help make the connection between household stability and economic development clear to folks, because too often we keep those in different silos. We don't remind ourselves that business owners are also households. They're people. Yeah, people trying to manage childcare while they're running a business. They're trying to pay the household rent or the mortgage while they're trying to keep that business going. And so the work that we do really is trying to operate at the intersection of economic development, workforce, and individual success, workforce preparation. And so going back to your question, the data is real clear for us that many entrepreneurs, they're making money, income that's above the poverty line, but at the end of the day, they're still not able to cover all their basics. And so they're like, the essential workers that we celebrated so much during the pandemic a few years ago. One of the things that we have learned through some work that we've done over the last couple of years in this connection of workforce development, economic stability, and entrepreneurship is that capital's not enough. You have to combine capital with coaching. You have to combine capital with financial planning for folks. You have to combine capital with creating the wherewithal that people have some breathing room at home. Our mantra is that when you stabilize the household behind the business is far more likely to grow and to prosper.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. I think, and I appreciate you adding that coaching perspective in there as well, because I think we don't see enough of the coaching. We see the playbooks. We see this class here, this workshop there, but we don't see the coaching. And sometimes it takes somebody else to say, well, then stop doing that. Can't you do it better? Can't you do it, simpler? And we're so on that treadmill that we don't think, well, I guess I could turn that treadmill a little bit slower, or I could speed it up, or I could just get off this treadmill and get on the other treadmill. And I think a lot of times we just don't, we can't coach ourselves, and so I think we fail to look for that coach.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think that most entrepreneurs in the very early stage of their business were digging in their pockets. They were paying bills out of their checkbooks. They were deferring going to the doctor because they needed to make sure they were there at work trying to build that business. And so we forget that part. And I think it's important for us to really remind ourselves that it's not simply about business planning. It's not simply about being able to, acquire capital. There's all personal and household dynamics that are also at the foundation of a business leader's success.
No, absolutely. So when we look at this, how does that affect the coordination between United Way and, let's say, local chambers of commerce? When the chambers focus on the business growth and United Way is focusing on stabilizing that workforce, how does that collaboration look like? What are successes there?
The success comes when that collaboration is done with intention, that it's part of the strategy at the outset, not simply what do we do when folks get in trouble. And so our strength really is bringing data and strategy around workforce, around how do you train people for jobs? How do you help that entrepreneur find the talent that they're looking for? So we can bring that kind of data, but we also bring the support services and the infrastructure that people need when they get in trouble, when they run out of money to pay their bills, when the challenges of life take over. And so when Chambers and United Ways get together at the very beginning to think about what's the human and business planning chemistry that's really got to work effectively, then I think we're really at the beginning stage of business development and growth, not at the backstage of how do you fix problems that you could have easily prevented.
You know, we've talked a bit about data, and we had a great conversation around that this week at the roundtable. But when we look at shared data, why is it so important and critical when Henry County is making decisions about housing, workforce, economic development, education, attainment, on and on and on? But why is shared data so important to that?
What I like to say is growth without data is just gambling. You just taking bets, and I think we need to understand that data is the infrastructure of economic development, frankly. And so if you're not making wise decisions using data about housing, about workforce, about economic development, if you're doing all that stuff based on anecdotes and who's got the best story of my own personal sort of journey rather than some clear hard fast good data, then you really just it's all a crapshoot. You build in business fragility into your strategy, and that's not what you want to do. Yeah, you don't want to build fragility into it. You want to build strength. And so you got to remember that if housing costs are rising faster than wages, you're going to have a hard time finding talent. If there's no childcare available, then you're going to have a hard time keeping people because they're going to be worried about
Absolutely.
how their children are faring while they're at work. And so it's really making sure that you're looking at this intersection of people and the business development. That's where that data is going to be really essential to helping you make the wisest decisions, as I said, at the very beginning, rather than trying to fix things at the end.
Well, and I think that's a great point because data is fact. Data, you have the information before you to make the decisions. And I think one of the best reasons for using data is it takes the emotion out of it. If you've got a difficult decision to make, the data helps make that decision and you can step back from the emotion. And I think far too often we see the reactions to things done that were done on emotion. And once we can pull the
A-
data in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Thank you.
you get the data from other places. So you learn from them
Absolutely.
about what worked best under what conditions, what things I need to avoid. And so you just can't flail around. You know, it's like a business. It's like me as an entrepreneur deciding I want to sell teddy bears with three heads and two tails. You know, I might think it's a good idea. But if I got no data that says there's a market for this, that there's somebody who's going to be able to produce
Right.
it, there's a way I could sell it, you know, it's just a good idea. And I think too often we flail around with the
Yeah.
best of intentions, but not data grounding the decisions we have to make to drive success.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Let's expand out a bit. When you look at Henry County side by side with other Metro Atlanta trends, where is the county aligned with the region, and where is it experiencing a different pace of growth?
Now, I will say Henry County reflects the regional trends that we're seeing in rising housing costs and workforce shortages and the challenges related to the accessibility of high quality childcare for folks. So it's a mirror image in many cases of the rest of the region. What's different? In many cases, Henry County is experiencing these things at a faster pace. It's absorbing a lot of the pressure that some of the other counties are feeling. People are end up moving to Henry County because it's a little more difficult where they are. So Henry County is both the recipient of and sort of a barometer of the kind of challenges and growth and constraints that the rest of the region seems to be facing.
Wow. Okay. Well, that I think we can have an entirely different conversation in the future on, because that is fascinating to look at it that way and to see what that possibilities might be. I appreciate that. Back to the entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
When we look at entrepreneurs, they lack a lot of the traditional maybe benefits that employed
Oh,
workers
yeah.
have, such as paid time off and that. How does the United Way programming intentionally support both business viability and personal financial stability?
So we've had the pleasure of being involved in a couple of big initiatives over the last couple of years. We were partners with Wells Fargo on a $20 million initiative called Open for Business that was really focused on small businesses and solopreneurs. And then we had recently launched something called Building Resilient Entrepreneurs that's also focused on that same group. That's where the stories come of people who are paying their bills out of their checkbook, not out of any revenue that the business is generating at the moment. So we have seen firsthand the experiences that people are having. And what we try to do, as we said earlier, combining capital with coaching. So we have coached folks on financial planning. We have brought our volunteer income tax assistance program to small businesses so that they could get their taxes done free and not have to pay the expense that comes with that. Any way that they can shave some of their expenses through things connected with resources and capabilities of United Way. That's what we have tried to do in the two initiatives that I mentioned earlier. And I think a partnership with the Chamber of Commerce could put us in a position to provide that kind of assistance there in Henry County.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that just reinforces that conversation we had earlier about an investment versus a safety net.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think, it gives me the opportunity to say this. I think people still think of United Way as an organization that runs a workplace campaign. And then gives away a lot of money to a lot of nonprofits. Yeah, we still do that. But the work is far more strategic, and it is about solving what I think is one of the region's most pressing problems, and that is economic mobility and the fact that we've got too many people who could be gainfully employed, who could be helping build businesses that, for a variety of reasons, are sitting on the sideline. And we're trying to bring strategic partnerships to address that pressing issue. And so I thank you again for the opportunity to share what we're doing with you.
You opened the door, so I'm going to throw you a curveball here for
Hmm.
a minute.
I'll take it.
You had mentioned that in essence, I think there are still quite a few out in the community that see the United Way in the old community chest vision. But I know over the last, wow, decade, 2 decades, and that
Sure. Yeah.
you guys have started looking at community
Right.
impact as a means of funding or as a method of funding those not-for-profits. It's not just an automatic, "Yeah, you got it last year, you get it this year," that you guys are looking at impact. Tell us a little bit more about that and how that change and how you function has helped change the communities.
Thanks for that question. People don't need us to take their dollar and send it to their favorite charity. Technology has made that an almost free opportunity. So they can do that with us. What people are looking for us to do is drive particular impact on issues that they care about, whether it is making sure that more children get to kindergarten with the skills they need to be successful. So that's behind the investments we make in early learning. Are they concerned about kids making it through the K through 12 system, prepared for college and careers when they graduate high school? That's how we're measuring some of the success we're doing by investments in that K through 12 space to make sure that more children are prepared for college, careers, the military, whatever they want to do at 18, they make a decision on their own, not have the decision made for them because they just don't have the skills. And so we have mapped out a strategy, a series of strategies, frankly, built around how do we improve the well-being of children across the 13 counties that we cover here in Metro Atlanta, and created some very specific strategies with measurable outcomes that we ask the community hold us accountable for. And if we do that, then we truly are good stewards of their charitable gifts.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to make sure that we provided that info to our listeners and that it's not the United Way that we might remember from the 90s,
Right.
even early 2000s.
Correct.
So I appreciate that. I got a couple more questions if
Hmm.
you still have time.
Yes,
All right.
sir.
Data shows many businesses fail, but it's due to cash flow shocks rather than poor
Oh,
ideas.
yeah.
How can we build systems
Right.
that help solopreneurs recover faster from inflation or family emergencies? These cash flow. I mean, they've got the ideas, Milton. They've got, other than this three-headed teddy bear, they've got some great ideas out there. How do we work as a community to help them recover?
One, I think we operate from the perspective that resilience isn't about avoiding a shock. It's about how we can build the systems that help people recover from those shocks. And so, going back to what we've done in building resilient entrepreneurs and our VITA program, when you bring those two things together, that helps to strengthen cash flow. That helps the entrepreneurs build savings that they can draw on, but also builds long term habits around financial planning, both on the business side as well as on the personal side. So they're better able to weather some of the storms that are going to hit. Because, like you said, they don't, most businesses don't fail because the idea is bad. They fail because something unexpected happens and there's no cushion. And so, how do we help create the cushions that people are going to need in order to be able to weather those storms? It's all about those buffers. And so, yeah, I was simply going to say, if you can leave your audience with one sort of thing to remember, resilience is economic strategy. Again, it's not social service on the back end. It is how do we bake this into the strategies on a go forward basis so that we've got some landing spaces for folks when that inevitable turmoil comes.
Well, and I think that's important because things are going to happen. Gas prices are going to come
Right.
up, they're going to go down.
Right.
And with that, you know, am I able to finalize that commitment I have with that contract that I had to drive on
Mm-hmm.
the other side of Atlanta? And can
Mm-hmm.
I afford the gas now? Or what am I not paying at home? And so I think, we're constantly going to see tariffs and gas prices and inflation and things like that. But it's how we choose to respond to them that
Right.
keeps us
Right.
successful. And
Right.
so by you providing that resiliency, I think that helps us step back
Mm-hmm.
and say, okay, this was bound to happen. Everybody else is facing higher gas prices. How am I going to deal with it? So yeah, so thank you. I appreciate that. Let's talk about 10 years from
Right.
now, what specific data points, such as
Hmm.
ALICE percentages or business longevity, business startups,
Yeah.
what data points would you tell us we made the right investments in our people?
So I'd say number one, you got fewer Alice households. You got fewer of those folks who are working. And I think I said this the last time we were together, who have currently, more month left than money. You want to see that turned around. You want to be able to see people at the end of the month still able to squirrel away something for savings, but having paid their expenses. You want to see higher 5-year survival rates for businesses. I'm sure you'll agree with that. You want to see lower workforce turnover, either because of job satisfaction or better preparation for the jobs. I think we've got to wrestle with the notion of how do we make sure there's enough affordable childcare for folks, and affordable housing for folks, because those two things account for a pretty significant and increasing percentage of folks that leave jobs because they just can't afford to live near where they're working and the commute's too difficult. Or, you know, I'm making a choice between taking care of my 4-year-old or going to work. I can't do both right now. And then many people are in that situation. So if we can change the direction of those curves, we're going to be in better shape. So those are a couple of the things that I would want to put out as markers that say that we're where we want to be 5, 10 years from now if we put some pieces
I
in
agree
place
with you.
right now.
I think those would be some great starts to give us that momentum to really look at these investments and how do we strengthen the
Hmm.
community. Yeah. So let me final question for these business leaders, these
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, even C-suite executives, and our elected officials listening today. What is one way that they can use the data and the regional partnerships to move this work forward?
So I would say if you narrow me down to one way, I think it's really to sort of look at two strands of data at the place where they intersect. And that is our economic development strategies, our business development, business growth strategies, and household stability, particularly through the lens of solo entrepreneurs and businesses within that sort of first 5 years of their operations. Because that's where that fragility is, but that's where you can bake in resilience strategies, and that's going to be bound by the data. The data is going to tell you as much as you need to know about where the risks are and how we can address those risks in a preventive rather than responsive kind of way later on.
Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. I lied. I guess I've got one more question. Milton, tell our listeners where they can get more information about the United Way of Greater Atlanta and this Alice information, this Alice data. Where can they find that? Where can they get the context?
Sure. Yeah. Easily just go to www.unitedwayatlanta.org. And on that website, you'll find a full array of information about what we do, where we do it, the impact we're having, and some of the ALICE data and our child well-being index data will be there for you.
Wonderful. And
Absolutely.
again, this data is out there for anybody to use.
Right.
So make it part of your planning in that. Well, thank you, Milton. That's all for today's conversation, everybody. It's pretty clear that if we want Henry County to stay strong, we have to look at the whole picture, the business and the family behind it. When our entrepreneurs have a solid foundation at home, their businesses are way more likely to go the distance. A huge thanks to Milton Little Jr. for stopping by and showing us how data can help us stop playing catch up and start planning ahead. Again, that's that proactive look. If we can keep talking the same language and working together across the region, we're going to see much better outcomes for everyone. And success isn't just a report on a shelf, it's fewer families struggling, like we talked about, and more local shops thriving, like we talked about, for years to come. Thanks for listening, and let's keep moving this work forward together. Milton, thank you again very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Good to see you.
This episode's elite member highlight is Georgia Power. Small businesses start in the towns and cities that entrepreneurs call home. Business ideas are sparked by a problem they see in their own backyards, and they're inspired to provide a service or a product that neighbors need or want. The first mentors, customers, funding, office, and storefront are typically found in their hometown, and growth begins locally. Georgia Power promotes resources that entrepreneurs need to turn their inspiration into action, highlighting how communities across the state support entrepreneurship and small business. Vibrant communities provide the programs, people, and places that help small businesses thrive alongside major employers and creating a unified growth for all. Georgia Power is committed to helping you find your place in community. They invite entrepreneurs, resource providers, and local leaders to find inspiration in the innovation, support, and success stories from towns and cities statewide. This episode's initiative highlight is Thriving Henry Leaders. We know the idea of resilience and strong leadership doesn't just happen. It's something you have to build. That's why this month's initiative highlight focuses on the Chamber's new Thriving Henry Leaders program. One of the things we're most proud of at the Chamber is investing in the people who are leading our businesses, teams, and organizations every single day. At the end of April, we officially kicked off our Thriving Henry Leaders program in partnership with Kaiser Permanente with a cohort of about 20 leaders from across Henry County, beginning a 12-week journey together. This experience is facilitated by Dr. Heather Ross, who is guiding participants through real conversations and practical tools they can apply immediately in their day-to-day leadership. This isn't your typical leadership program. It's hands-on, it's real, and it's built for the kind of challenges leaders are actually facing right now. From navigating stress and burnout to building stronger teams, to leading with clarity in the middle of constant change. Throughout the program, participants are diving into topics like resilience, mental health in the workplace, communication, and team development, all with a focus on creating workplaces where people can actually thrive. But what really makes this experience stand out is the cohort itself. These leaders aren't just learning, they're learning with and from each other. They're sharing challenges, building trust, and growing alongside peers who understand what leadership really looks like in Henry County.
Ever wonder how your business could be featured right here on the podcast? It's easier than you think. We're offering podcast sponsorships that include shout-outs like this one, a spotlight in our episode description, and the option to record your own or let us read it for you. Want even more visibility? Bundle your podcast with a feature in our Chamber e-newsletter for double your impact. Sponsorships are limited. Email Trinity at tarcher@henrycounty.com to learn more.
Well, welcome back to this episode's conversation, and we're fortunate to have Dr. John Pace with us, who is the superintendent for Henry County Schools. Dr. Pace, welcome.
Great to be here, Mr. Joe Henning. I'm so excited to be here on the podcast with you all today and just here with representing Henry County Schools as superintendent and, hey, ready to have this conversation.
Wonderful.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, y'all just came back from spring break, and now you've got a busy several weeks coming into this, and you've got graduations.
Yes, sir.
Before you know it.
We are closing it out. We're in that last leg of the school year. Spring break just wrapped up.
Yeah.
It's coming faster than we can imagine. It's
well,
right
imagine you're one of those high school seniors. It's not going fast enough.
I was going to say, if I'm a high school senior, it's not happening fast enough. And I want to congratulate our upcoming class of 2026,
Absolutely.
our class of high school seniors. Graduations begin May 15th, running through May 22nd. We're looking forward to having the community out celebrating this upcoming Bright Futures class.
And you'll be back at Echo Park, correct?
We are at Echo
Wonderful.
Park for most of our graduations.
Oh, okay.
We do have 2 graduations happening at our Performing Arts Center,
Okay.
the Fairview Performing Arts Center, but the rest of the graduations are at Echo Park. Thanks to Echo Park.
Oh yeah, I was there last year and for a graduation, and it's so great to see that many from the community out there celebrating these students, the work and the hard work that they've done.
And first of all, the hard work that the students have done, the parents that supported them, the community, our teachers, all of our staff. It's a celebration for all
Absolutely.
of us. So it's a big party, and Echo Park is that facility that can host all of us.
That's right.
So we look forward to being at Echo Park again, and I know the students are excited, but so are the teachers, so are the parents, the entire community, and I just appreciate how the community embraces our students.
Absolutely. It is. I mean, we could go on and on about the great community we have here in Henry County and the difference between it and some of the other ones that you and I may have been in before.
Yes, sir, we can. And Henry County is doing fantastic work. I appreciate it every day.
Oh, yeah. It makes it easier to come into the office when you know you've got a group behind you.
Yes, sir.
But I know you're here. We're going to talk a little bit about E-SPLOST and E-SPLOST 7. So, we are, as many of us know, we're still in E-SPLOST 6.
Yes, sir.
And it runs through next year, 2027. Why is it so critical, Dr. Pace, for the district to secure the extension of this penny tax on the ballot now?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I mean, with the E-SPLOST being the primary resource means to support capital projects, resource acquisition, maintaining technical infrastructure, we must have sufficient runway to plan for continuation or disruption to this funding if it's not passed.
Yeah, well, we don't even think about that.
Well, sir, I have to give it on both sides, but the truth of the matter is that if there were ever a point where the referendum allowing continuation that it did not exist,
Mm-hmm.
the school system would have to identify what resources would have to be removed from students and staff.
Yeah.
Of course, we don't want that, but that's the truth of the reality. Replacement would happen at a slower rate. That's why we bring it now.
No, absolutely. And I think that's so critical that the community understands the imperative behind this and the work that goes into it. So your 7 project list reflects the feedback you received from last year's community survey and other insights gathered throughout the process. And how do you work that magic?
Well, this goes back, first of all, we want to ensure that the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of our community are always captured in everything that we do for our 42,000 students, 6,000 employees, because we know many people say our students are the future, but I like to say our students are the now. They are now. So preparation for this E-SPLOST is many others, but this E-SPLOST 7 dates back over a year, like you stated, beginning with an internal needs assessment that we conducted with our facilities, with our buildings, with our equipment, our resources. And then a community survey was sent out last spring over the summer. And it was shared on our website. We sent it directly to families through our connection where we can directly get to the families and to the community. And that resulted in over 1,700 responses just from that survey. Additionally, we held focus groups. I have a superintendent advisory committee that is inclusive of students, parents, employees, community partners, where we were able to gather insight on the needs based on their perception. We also met with our Henry County local government, thanks to all of our local municipalities as well as the county. We actually were able to come and meet and hear from them because we know they represent the community. So based on this, we were able to put that all together. On top of that, we're also in the process of developing our community-inspired strategic plan for 2026-2031.
Yeah.
So we were able to gather even more information, not only connected to the strategic plan, but to E-SPLOST. And we did this in community cluster conversations in the early fall, from summer to fall. So we were able to gather all of that information and come up with the list that we have. And one of the things that came out of the feedback was there was not a huge inclination for new construction. What we learned from our constituents is, hey, let's maintain what we have. Let's renovate what we have. We don't want to see a lot of new construction. So this actually supported our forecasted growth model and ultimately resulted in major facilities projects that we're proposing in E-SPLOST 7, such as an addition to Dutchtown Elementary School, in addition to Tussahaw Elementary School, HVAC life cycle equipment replacement, elementary playground enhancements, and life cycle roof replacements.
Well, and I think that deserves our appreciation to you and your team in that you are taking the community's feedback and the community's interests and working with that. And I think, any of us that have driven by Tussahaw see the portable mobile classrooms.
Our cottages.
Your cottages? Okay. All right.
Cottages.
But I think too, the fact that you've talked to not just the parents and the teachers, but also the employers and the other community partners out there to see what it is that they anticipate 5-10 years down the road so that you are all prepared to do that. I mean, that's kudos to you. Kudos.
Well, I have to say kudos to the community for participating, for coming out. And I'll tell you, this is where some of my flaws come out. When I got 1,700 respondents, I said, let's extend the timeline. I want more respondents. We worked with some of our local governments at events they were having to extend it to give I wanted as many responses.
Absolutely.
And 1,700, don't get me wrong, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But I wanted more. Yes, we got to
Oh, yeah.
1,700. I wanted to see it cross 2,000. I think they stopped counting after a certain point when we extended it.
Just told you to round up.
Yeah, round up. So I say that because getting our community feedback is so
Absolutely
important. And that's what the E-SPLOST represents. When we put out an E-SPLOST, we assure that what we put on the E-SPLOST happens.
And I think that's key. I think so many misconceptions out there are that you and I and all of our peers in the community, that leadership group that we have, that we operate in silos and that we, just kind of do what we think needs to be done. And yet it's all based on feedback and cooperation, collaboration.
Yes, it is.
And again, I think that's one of the strengths that Henry County has, is that there is that trust and that collaborative opportunity that we have.
You hit it on the head. This is a blessing here.
Yeah. So when you look at the feedback, and we all want enhanced safety features in those schools, whether it's our children or our spouses or whomever is in that building, we want classroom door locks and security cameras. But then we also have, if you're looking at some of these other, these older schools that need to be modernized and that become engaging environments for students, how do you balance that?
Wow. I'll tell you this much. You hit on one of our top priorities, safety and security, and it's more elevated now than probably any other time in educational history that I can remember. Safety and security is a core component of our E-SPLOST project list, including planned enhancements to classroom door locks. And I know that sounds simple, but classroom door locks are sometimes your best defense against any type of intruder or things like that. So enhancements to classroom door locks, middle and high school security door additions at our elementary school camera upgrades. We have cameras, but we want to get to the next level of technology to ensure the safety, and updates to our safety life systems that include fire alarms, sprinklers, single entry points, backup generators. We're also planning for facilities and equipment related to the development of a Henry County Schools Police Department, which is a transition that has been planned in consultation with the Henry County government and Henry County Police Department. So these enhancements are important, but going back to what you asked about balance, it's also important to understand that balanced among this improvement is to all aspects, to the learning environment, for our school infrastructure, for our fine arts programs, athletics, extracurricular, technology, and instructional resource. So there is a balance. However, I look at safety and security, and I think the Board of Education, with the investments they've made, we look at that as a foundation that you come to school in a safe environment and you return home safely.
Yes. You had mentioned the technology needs and that. And so what about the refreshment of the technology? Because it's constantly changing, whether it's the software or the hardware.
All change.
Yeah. How do you
changes every month? Going back to actually E-SPLOST 5, which ran from 2018 to 2022, presented the first opportunity for Henry County Schools to provide learning devices for every student. You call it being a one-to-one district. That's the terminology that you use in education, but
sounds fancy.
Yeah, sounds fancy. It's a mathematical ratio, 1-to-1. Go back to mathematics class. What you learned in mathematics is used in life. But throughout the current decade, we have followed procedures and process to refresh, repair, and upgrade these devices on a 5-year replacement cycle, and that suits the needs of our district. That process would remain in place. We won't change that process. However, what we're looking at is, especially with our early learners, we already know the focus on literacy, and that's a focus of mine as superintendent. It's a focus of the state, but literacy being so important and focusing on literacy with our early learners. So when we talk about technology and device, we're looking at providing our early learners in pre-K through 1, transitioning them to iPad to better accommodate the learning styles of an early learner. iPads seem to suit early learning and the students in those primer grades. So that is what we'll look for in our E-SPLOST, but it's also important. Our Board of Education, we have a policy about balanced screen time. we also understand with technology, you don't want to
It's not a
overuse it.
babysitter.
It's not a babysitter, and you become too dependent on it. It becomes a crutch. So
Right.
it's about a balance. We need the technology. We need that one-to-one ratio to meet the needs of our students. However, in our E-SPLOST is also for instructional resources, which includes textbooks. So it's about a balance in that educational environment.
You know, I guess now is the time to bring this up. You know, there is that misconception that these funds can be used for teacher salaries. I know. Bear with me. I just want to share
In a
this.
dream,
Right.
a dream world,
Right, but
not in the real world.
I want to clarify for the listeners in that that's not the case, and this is strictly limited to capital improvements.
This is strictly limited to capital projects, capital improvements. E-SPLOST, now I'm going to do a little E-SPLOST history, but E-SPLOST
okay.
was created by the Georgia legislature in the late 1990s as a way for school systems in Georgia to keep up with growth. And we in Henry County,
Yeah.
we know about
We
growth.
know growth.
So it was created for school systems to keep up with growth. We're in Henry County, we're growing. And since the vast majority of the general operating fund is for employee salaries,
Right.
I can tell you right now, approximately 90% of our general operating budget in Henry County goes to employee salaries. Now, for those who run businesses, and I know we're with the Chamber of
Yeah.
Commerce in the business world, I don't think that'd be a viable model.
Right.
But we're not a for-profit industry.
You might be doing a little bit more important work than I'm doing.
Well, no, we're all doing important work. It's an ecosystem.
Yeah.
We feed each other, but
Mhm.
we're not a for-profit industry. So 90% of our budget of our general operating budget goes towards paying employees. So if you do your mathematics, that only leaves 10%. So E-SPLOST funds capital projects outside of that general operating budget. E-SPLOST, of course, as we know, is a 1-cent sales tax on every dollar spent here in Henry County, and if approved by voters, is collected over a 5-year period that we spoke about in the beginning. And I'll reiterate, these funds can only be used for capital projects, including construction, renovation, technology, transportation, school buses, and learning equipment and resources.
So if this was not extended, what does that do for your operating budget?
If the E-SPLOST is not extended, we have to now go back to the community, going back to your original question. Why do we come this year versus waiting until next year? We would have to go back to our community and say, well, community, without E-SPLOST, the renovations, the projects that we have, we don't have funding for it. What are we now going to remove from the programs that we currently offer, such as our STEM program, our fine arts program? This goes all the way to our core. You just heard me mention, too, our beyond the core classes, our CTAE programs, and then even our core classes. We just implemented world language for all students in K through 12, which research shows bilingual students and teaching students a second language, higher test scores, better performance in life, a benefit to all. We would have to come to the community and say, community, what is it that you would like to see us let go of, eliminate? We would have to, unfortunately, abandon some of the programs that we currently offer in order to function. And the projects that we need to keep up, such as the HVAC. I mean, I don't ever want to have a call where we don't have an heater or an air conditioner working in a school site. Lighting not occurring, and we'd have to figure out, how do we make life happen?
That's it, with that 10% that you have.
With the 10% that's left.
Well, and
then think about, if that's the reality, we have to dig more into that 10%. Now we're tapping into the 90%, and that goes back to what I said before. 90% of our general operating fund is employee. I don't want to touch any of our employees.
And I guess the question is, if we're going to pull this back, do we start with preparing these students for the workforce? Do we worry about their safety?
Right.
I need your help now.
Which one is it? Do we pull safety back as a parent? Now, let me take my superintendent hat off. As a parent, I don't want to pull back on safety. I don't want to pull back on the fine arts. I don't want to pull back on STEM. I don't want to pull back on world language. I have 2 daughters taking Spanish right now, and they love taking Spanish. But these are the tough decisions we have to make if the E-SPLOST is not approved.
Right. And I think that extension of that E-SPLOST penny, it's such a smart investment in the students, in the future of Henry County, in our workforce. So our employers need this. I mean, that's why the chamber is behind this and supporting the passage of it. It just makes sense.
And I appreciate that. And I'll tell you, like, I think you've heard me tell this story. Before I was a resident of Henry County, I was a visitor
That's right.
of Henry County. And one of the things that this E-SPLOST does is, as I used to visit Georgia, coming to see my mother, and traffic stopped in Henry County, and I had to feed my family or go to the outlets to shop because we like to go shop at outlets, I was spending money in Henry County, and those pennies were benefiting Henry County schools. And so as a visitor, as a tourist, the pennies collected are coming to us.
Absolutely.
And that's a huge benefit of the E-SPLOST, is not a burden fully on the taxpayers
or
here.
the property owner.
Or the property owner.
Yeah.
We see tourists all the time. I was one of those tourists. Paid many pennies.
I mean, we complain about the traffic in Henry County, but you're right. It does get people off the interstate.
It got me off the interstate every time I drove to see my mother.
So let me ask you, as we wind down the conversation, and I appreciate your time and just the sharing of what the district has in mind for the next 5 years with E-SPLOST 7. We kind of danced around this at the beginning, but I really do want to bring this home to our listeners and the Henry County residents. If this is voted down in May, you've said that the next course of action is to identify what these new improvements are. But I'm more concerned with the momentum that our students have been making in improving test scores and graduation rates. I know it's not them alone. I know that's all of you.
Right.
But we have a positive trend going now. What will that mean for this trend if, for some reason, this does not pass in May?
Well, first, let me say this. If the E-SPLOST referendum does not pass in May, Henry County schools would have one more opportunity to put the referendum before the voters in November 2027. Now, going to your question, the trajectory, the momentum we have as a school district, like our results from GMAS, CCRPI, we saw some of the highest growth in the state. We were one of 4 school districts recognized in the state. I don't like to make excuses. I believe we're going to find a way, some way, somehow. However, I'll compare it to this. It's like gas in a car. If the gas runs out of the car, it's going to slow you down very much. And if I see this as some gas for us, and if that gas keeps going, we can continue to go at the rate we're going. Now, if we get on the empty tank, we have to get out and push. We're going to keep going, but it's going to be at a much slower rate. But I don't believe in excuses or obstacles, but it would be an obstacle we have to overcome.
Yeah, and I think too, it's not. I don't mean to put this as a burden or a responsibility for you and for your team. This is a responsibility for the community as a whole and the community from the business side of it as well. Because if we were to run out of gas, that impacts the future workforce. That impacts the economic mobility of our residents and the opportunity for them to have discretionary money and to be able to invest and things like that. That pulls us all back a bit.
And you make a very valid point. I cannot disagree with that. And that's not what we want. And I see the education, we're at the Chamber of Commerce meetings. You hear me say, as the superintendent and the head of the public education system, I have a responsibility in feeding the workforce through the success of our students, through the success of our schools. And that's just the indirect positive benefits is, like you say, you look at school districts where, hey, you really invest in the public education system. You see thriving, some of the best communities in the world. So that's how I look at it. It's a worthwhile investment to invest in Henry County schools education. Just, with this E-SPLOST 7, going back to the operating budget, 90% of the general operating budget allocated to salaries and benefits of teachers. I didn't even say the benefits part. This could result in delays or cancellations of planned school renovations, infrastructure upgrades, technology, safety and security improvements, as you mentioned. We have to reprioritize. You know how hard it is to reprioritize with less.
Dr. Pace, thank you for your time. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything that you and the school district do for this community, for our workforce, for our businesses. It has been a pleasure talking to you. Any last thoughts you want to leave with our listeners?
First of all, I want to say thank you for having me
Absolutely.
here. This has been enjoyable. I won't say it's the best part of my day because I don't want to make other people jealous, but if you know what day it is, it's probably the best part of my day, sir.
There you go.
I didn't visit a school today. So that's why it's the best part of my day.
That's right.
As you know, May 19th, this E-SPLOST referendum is on the ballot. So, hey, it's been approved by Henry County voters since 1997. That's what I'll tell you is the history of it. And this, like I said, this 1 cent penny sales tax will support capital projects, infrastructure, safety and security. And you can go onto the website and see about any information connected to E-SPLOST. And hey, thank you so much to our community of Henry County. And we look forward to seeing you in graduations.
Absolutely.
Our summer programs are coming up. We're getting ready for STEM camps, summer programming, summer school. And next thing you know, we'll be at the start of the next school year, sir.
Oh.
And you know, we'll be at the start of the next school year. And I'm ready for it. I'm ready.
We're already talking about the orientation process for the new educators.
And thank you for that.
The
orientation that you all do for our new educators is
no, it's our
look.
pleasure.
I invite anybody to come volunteer. I love coming, and when we pack the bags and the boxes, it's awesome. It's feel like I'm working in Amazon or something.
I want to remind everybody that you can see the entire project list is on the school website.
On the school's website,
and you can look through and I assume it's by year and by cluster.
It will. Yes, you'll see it by just overall projects, and then you can see it by cluster.
Okay.
And I would also like to thank the community for coming out to the community cluster conversations that we had over the past weeks, where we have been speaking to the community about the E-SPLOST project. So thank you, parents, teachers, principals, all staff, students who were there helping, performing, volunteering at our community cluster conversations. And it's just another great example of how the Henry County community is one of the...
It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, and I think, Dr. Pace, I think that speaks well as we wrap up the conversation around E-SPLOST.
Yes.
Is that, we talk about it being community and we are champions for this referendum, the chamber is, but we can't rely on you and your team alone in order to prepare these students for the future. And it takes our employers, it takes the chamber, it takes our county government, our city governments, it takes everybody to work together. It takes a village. I mean, I hate to say that, but...
Very valid and very true. And I'll tell you, Superintendent, we don't succeed without our community. We need you to succeed on behalf of our students. And we see what our students can do when you give them the platform, when you give them the spotlight, they will always shine.
And to that point, the business community can't succeed without you. So I think that's where we've figured it out in Henry County, and maybe the rest of the world will figure it out.
Well, let's be a model so everyone can figure it out. It's a symbiotic relationship. And I thank you all.
Absolutely. We will be right back after this message, and stay tuned. And now it's time for our Member Minute, where we highlight the people, businesses, and organizations that make our chamber community so strong. Today, we're featuring one of our Volunteers of the Year, Shanna Amoah. Let's take a listen. Hello, and welcome to the Community Convener. I'm your host, Joseph Henning. Here in Henry County, we talk a lot about the efficiency economy, the solopreneurs and small businesses that serve as the heartbeat of our region. And today I'm joined by someone who doesn't just participate in that economy, she connects it. Shanna spent 20 years in the corporate world as a senior operations and product manager before taking a leap of faith into entrepreneurship. She navigated a grand opening in March 2020, talk about the timing there, and came out the other side as a powerhouse advocate for our business community. Most recently, she was honored as the Henry County Chamber's 2025 Volunteer of the Year. Please welcome the founder and CEO of Amoah Enterprises, Shanna Amoah. Shanna, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Joe. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Congratulations again on Volunteer of the Year. That's a pretty great accomplishment.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's start with your previous life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You spent 2 decades in high-level corporate operations and product management. And then you launched Amoah Enterprises with a mission to be, and I quote, the bridge between people, purpose, and possibility. Having seen the view from the corporate boardroom, what was the specific gap that you noticed in Henry County's small business landscape that made you realize this bridge was needed?
I won't call it a gap per se. I did see a need for people to have a sense of purpose, a connection to community. So when I started Amoah Enterprises, I thought about children because at the time I had an 8-year-old, correct? So that was the launch of Amoah Enterprises, DBA, Party by Design, not
Okay.
official, but that was the launch of that for me.
Wow. Okay. So an 8-year-old starting a business,
Yeah.
COVID hits.
Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
COVID hit.
Talk about a life-changing
A very
year. Yeah.
drastic one. Yes, it was. 3 days after opening my business, I was told to close it.
Wow.
So I closed for a couple of months, and at start of June and July, I had a very full packed summer camp for children.
Okay.
And that actually started my connection to community. I
Sure.
started inviting in local business owners, professionals, just people doing great things around the community to the studio to be a part of that summer camp.
This is a curveball I'm throwing at you, but I know we've got the solopreneurs, the entrepreneurs that are out there listening to this. While they're not dealing with COVID, they've got other fun things like tariffs and inflation and
Correct.
higher costs for a lot. How did that COVID impact you as you're just starting your business? What was that like?
I don't think I fully recovered from that
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
Honestly, to be honest about it, stayed as long as I could in that particular storefront. Thanks to the business owner, she was able to work with me on, lowering some costs or whatever. But after 3 years of trying to navigate those waters, I decided, well, you know what? This is a business that I can pick up and just take with me.
There you go.
And so I decided to pivot and went mobile with that
Okay.
business. So I was still offering the same service, still connecting with community, getting calls from our schools, from our city municipalities, churches, homes, and of course, business owners too that wanted to have some fun
Yeah.
in their studio.
Yeah, so it's a successful pivot then.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Exactly.
You've mentioned that Amoah Enterprises is about, quote, access and advocacy. I like that. For a small business owner who feels like they're shouting into a void, what does it actually look like when you activate their presence in the community?
It looks like, hello, I'm here. I've been in Henry County all this time, but now I'm really here. And so Amoah Enterprises, connecting business to community, is just offering that extra boost. I've been here for 25 years. People know me, sometimes affectionately known as the mayor of Henry County. I'm like, that is not even possible. But just having that reputation of being known. And so to offer brand marketing services to small business solopreneurs, it just shines a light on them.
That's amazing. Tell me a bit, we talked about the pivot and that, but how has that trial by fire experience? How have you been able to use that when you consult with the businesses today?
So I've been able to use that in saying, if it's not working, you don't have to
Stop doing
stay.
it.
Exactly. Seriously, if it's not working and you can pick up and go somewhere, if it's a storefront and you can move your business, take it with you.
Yeah.
If you can use it as an e-commerce, do that. Don't stay somewhere where you have all that overhead,
Right.
plus employees, and yourself. I would just say pivot and take it on the go.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. One way that you've shown that advocacy is through your Black Friday Digital Edition magazine. Congratulations on that
Thank
launch.
you.
And you've showcased, I'm going to guess, 100 predominantly Black-owned businesses across Henry County. Why was that specific platform so important to you, and what kind of ripple effect have you seen?
It was very important, Joe. As you know, I've been a member with the Chamber for almost 6 years now, and just being a part of the community, I saw firsthand, wow, we're getting at least every week 3 or 4 Black businesses opening and joining the chamber. Maybe there's a space for it. Maybe I can highlight that on the platform. And it just came to mind, and I was just going to do something for Black Friday in November. And then I decided, you know what? Actually, it wasn't me that decided. It was the people. I would get someone coming to me saying, hey, I found another business that want to be in your magazine. And it just continued.
That's such a great word of mouth opportunity.
And it's still happening. And so I decided, well, you know what? Let me just do Black History Month. And now we're looking at Juneteenth. We're working on that.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's coming up.
It really is. It really is.
So you were named 2025 Volunteer of the Year, and you're deeply involved with our Women's Leadership Council as well as some other committees and that around here. In a season where you are scaling your own firm, why is staying boots on the ground in volunteer leadership still a non-negotiable for you?
Because it's who I am. I'm passionate about business. I'm passionate about community. I'm passionate about women. Just passionate about giving back.
Yeah.
It's always been in me, even before corporate, even during corporate and after. I'm going to give the guy on the street some money. I'm going to give that person that's hungry food. I'm going to rally people to come behind the community to help where we can.
Yeah.
And it's just who I am. And it's
And
always been that.
Did I just see, I believe I saw that you were with the Women Builds for the Southern Crescent Habitat.
You did.
Okay.
You
What else
did.
are you involved in the community? I mean, I know I appreciate your work here, but I know that you're involved beyond the chamber. What other things are you working on?
I am, yes. And so you just mentioned Women Build. So that was my, I think, third or fourth bill. Very, very exhilarating. I love giving back to that. Meeting the homeowners that are there on the
Yes.
ground working alongside us. So currently I am on the board of Connecting Henry, ensuring that have housed for our community, that they have utilities, that their bills are paid, communities and schools. I was on the board for Henry for Music, ensuring that a student that can't afford an instrument gets one. Recently, I've been added to the board of trustees with Children's Speedway Charities.
Wow.
And so
Congratulations.
I really enjoy that. Thank you. And so we have a partnership right now with Eggs Up McDonough, where you can round up to give back. And also with Sweet Arbor and Gezzo's, where 10% of each meal goes towards the
that's
charity.
great.
So
That's
just in those relationships, I just walked in, had a conversation, and it was agreed right away. Yes, we'd love to help. And so
Yeah.
that's a part of community and having relationships.
Absolutely.
Moving the needle forward slowly.
Absolutely. Your energy for the community is infectious. And as we just heard, a lot of the involvement that you have, I appreciate that. And I thank you for that. Absolutely. But before we let you go, where can our listeners find you to learn more about Amoah Enterprises and the work that you're doing?
So you can find me on TikTok on the Shanna Amoah. That's SHANNA, last name Amoah, AMOAH. Or you can visit my website where you can find every link on there, as well as Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn as well. But that is www.amoahenterprises.com.
All right. And Amoah, again, is AMOAH.
That's correct.
All right. Well, Shanna, thank you for being a convener and for everything you do for Henry County and the Chamber.
Thank you.
But for our listeners, just remember, when one person rises, the entire community rises with them. And Shanna is a prime example of that. We'll see you next time on the Community Convener. All right. Thank you again to Shanna for that conversation and for the impact she continues to make in our community. And now for more member news. Henry County Fire Rescue is partnering with Safe Haven Baby Boxes to bring a life-saving initiative to our community. This program provides a safe, legal, and anonymous option for parents in crisis to surrender a newborn, helping prevent infant abandonment while increasing awareness of safe haven laws. The Henry County Water Authority is sharing an important update following a statewide Level 1 drought response issued by the Georgia Environmental Protection Division. While Henry County's water supply remains in strong condition, the authority is increasing communication around water conservation and encouraging residents to be mindful of daily use. This is a proactive approach to help protect our water resources and keep our water system strong. And celebrate with us at our upcoming ribbon cuttings. May 7th at 11 a.m. for TrueScript Court Reporting Institute, May 14th at 3 p.m. for Harmony at Eagles Landing, May 20th at 11 a.m. for Caldor Acres, and May 26th at 11 a.m. for Sanders Real Estate. Interested in hearing more about our members? Check out our member news section on our website.
You've heard about our podcast sponsorships, so why not make it your moment? We'll record your ad, give your business a shout out, and even offer a bundle with our e-newsletter to expand your reach. It's simple, affordable, and built to highlight what makes you stand out. Reach out to Trinity at tarcher@henrycounty.com to get started.
And now for our upcoming events. On May 12th from 8 to 9 a.m., we're hosting our next skills showcase, The Science of Clean, What Really Happens When We Tidy Up. This session features Tammy Sellers with Anchor Services Group as she breaks down the real impact of cleanliness on your business, from boosting productivity to building customers' trust. You'll walk away with practical, science-backed strategies you can actually use. On May 14th from 8:30 to 10 a.m., we're hosting a Henry Chamber pitch competition. Can you sell your product or service in just 3 minutes? This fast-paced event gives entrepreneurs, small business owners, and side hustlers the chance to put their pitch to the test in front of their peers. Attendees will vote to select the pitch of the day. Come ready to build confidence, gain exposure, and connect with a community ready to support you. On May 14th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we're hosting Bridge, Henry Chamber Connect. Running a business can feel like navigating a maze, but you don't have to figure it out alone. This event brings top-tier business experts directly to you for real, one-on-one conversations. No panels, no long workshops, just practical, actionable guidance tailored to your business, from finance and growth strategy to marketing, legal, and AI tools. If you're looking for clarity, direction, and next steps you can actually use, this is where you need to be. On May 28th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., join us for our Business After Hours at the Henry County Veterans Support Group. This month, Business After Hours is more than networking. It's a chance to show up for those who have served our community. The Veterans Support Group plays a vital role in helping local veterans navigate life after service, and this event gives you the opportunity to connect while supporting a mission that truly matters. And don't forget, the Chamber Jackpot will be $250, but you must be present to win. Door prizes are welcome. On May 30th from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., join us for the Chamber's Armed Forces Day celebration. This event brings together veterans, business leaders, and the community to explore how the leadership skills forged in service translate into success in business. You'll hear from a powerful panel of veteran and business owners sharing real-world insights, plus the vendor experience will be open throughout the event, giving you the chance to support local businesses and connect with community organizations. And looking ahead, mark your calendars for one of the Chamber's signature events, the Innovation Summit, happening on June 18th. This year's theme, The Talent Catalyst, is all about tackling one of the biggest challenges facing businesses today: how to build a strong culture and retain great people in a rapidly changing workforce. Throughout the morning, you'll hear from dynamic speakers, take part in interactive sessions, and connect with leaders from across industries. If you're serious about building a stronger team and organization, this is one you won't want to miss. For more Chamber events and information on how to register, visit the Chamber calendar on our website. If you're interested in discussing membership benefits or sponsorship opportunities, please connect with our team at 770-957-5786 or at henrycounty.com. We'll return in 2 weeks with another community dialogue, insights from Visit Henry, and more Henry County news and updates. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and follow the Henry County Chamber of Commerce on social media for updates and upcoming events. Until next time, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep growing with us at the Henry County Chamber.